Now, as Stuart kindly said in his introduction, I've been involved in the advertising business in one way or another for well over 30 years now. And I also do a little bit of speaking and not dancing. That was me on the about to give a presentation on the P&O's Ventura, so I do a bit of cruise ship speaking. But my professional career is mainly involved in advertising. So tonight, my topic is all about advertising, but it's not the boring stuff. I've just chosen the fun stuff. So advertising then, what's it all about? Well, this is my definition for this evening, and it's where business meets show business. Now, most of advertising is pretty dull most of the time, but it has that little touch of glamour because it intersperses with, occasionally you get to meet famous people, famous actors. John Ritchie was another contemporary of Peter Marsh, and he was the managing director of another of the seminal marketing and advertising agencies of the 60s and 70s. And it was an organisation called Collett Dickinson Pearce. Now again, not a name that will be familiar to you, but their work will be, and you'll see some of that very shortly. I haven't managed to find their logo, I was looking for it, but this is a book cover actually about the agency. I only found it the other day. But essentially, they were the agency which really helped put British advertising on the map. They built the reputation, which still exists today in the industry, of British advertising being a great product. There were some members of the Collett Dickinson Pearce agency who did go all the way to Hollywood. And the first gentleman I'd like to mention to you is the man who is the director responsible for these two very successful feature films, Gladiator on the right here, and this commercial, which was Hovis. So he was the director for Hovis, made Gladiator and many other films, Blade Runner as well. His name? Ridley Scott, or Sir Ridley Scott I think he is now. He was an employee of Collett Dickinson Pearce, one of their creative people who went on, to have a very successful career. And he wasn't alone. Another of his contemporaries from the 1970s is another gentleman who has had a very successful career on Hollywood. He directed Bugsy Malone there. He directed Midnight Express. Anybody? Any film buffs amongst you? Sir Alan Parker, another cheerful chappie. Another famous author, a well-known, regarded author who doesn't make much, or doesn't like to make much of his early advertising career, is this gentleman. Now, he had a wicked turn of pen. These are some of the famous campaigns that he penned. Irresistible for Aero, Naughty But Nice for Cream Cakes, and That'll Do Nicely for American Express. So that's how he earned a living before Midnight's Children and some of his later works. Also, sadly no longer with us, but somebody else who definitely earned some money in the advertising business early in his career was David Bowie. And he worked as a graphic designer at a London-based advertising studio in the 1960s. So you can see some famous people have made a few bob in advertising. One of the things I wanted to talk about is the use of humour. Now, humour is used, as you've already seen, and you will see in a minute, humour is used a lot in advertising. There is a bit of a trade-off. By giving us a laugh, we're happy to watch advertisers work. We're happy to watch the commercials. And a great example of that, of course, is someone like John Smith's. You may remember many of their commercials over the years. And drink advertising is a particularly strong area for use of humour. So what I want to do now is show you a couple of examples. Again, this comes out of the famous Collett Dickinson Pearce agency, but this time they're advertising drinks. And here's the first example. So there we are, humour. Basically, they're telling you nothing about the beer, but they're giving you a laugh and selling you the brand. The next one, again, is another drinks commercial, slightly more sophisticated, but nonetheless funny. And again, product of Collett Dickinson Pearce from the 1970s. I think you'll enjoy this one. So you've seen there then how advertisers, if you like, buy our attention by making us laugh, and it's still a technique we use today. I wanted to move on now, just talk briefly about music, because again, music is generally an important part of many of the ads we see, certainly the commercials. So I call this section Setting It to Music. Now, if I guarantee I can show you some images now, and if you so chose, you could sing along. So this is the importance of those little snappy things that we get at the end of commercials called jingles. So advertisers borrow, extensively from the classical repertoire, but they also use something called sonic devices, just little plays, little music played, maybe a few bars or just a couple of bars, a few notes even, that we remember. Here's the classic example. But all good things have to come to an end. And my final clip for you, it brings things pretty much up to date. Now, as you know, advertising's moved. I've shown you lots of TV commercials today, but there is something, as a phenomenon that we come across and we use in advertising, they call viral, where something gets passed around because it's funny and it's good. Now, one of the best examples of this comes from America, and it features a boss. And what's happening here? This is a boss advertising in a very interesting way his blenders. He makes blenders, okay? And he is doing a little demonstration commercial for a blender. So I'd like you to watch this. Since that man has been making those homemade videos and posting them on YouTube, he is now selling 5 times as many blenders as he did before the idea. So that's how a good advertising idea can work for your business. So on that note, I'd like to thank you for your attention and bid you good evening. And we'll take questions later on, so thank you very much.